we've decided to really lean into the idea of a holiday, a morbid message Monday.
It's a holly jolly podcast.
It's a holly jolly podcast. Just kidding.
I don't know the rest of that song, so
it's
not
the
gonna
best
work.
time of the
Oh,
year.
dear.
Should we have snow on? I'm gonna have snow on for this.
Absolutely, it's still the season.
'Tis the season to be snowy. So,
Good collection.
speaking of going into the light, did you guys know that Christmas time actually used to be Halloween?
What?
Yeah. Like, I'm not even joking. Christmas time was the time to gather around campfire and tell spooky stories. Not campfire, gather around the fire and tell spooky stories. And this was in the Victorian era. They were like obsessed with it, okay?
Right.
And if you really think about it, I think it makes a lot of sense.
It does.
Because, I mean, it's spookier, it's darker earlier, it makes more sense.
It is a darker season. It's a more depressing season, so I guess I could see that. Halloween
Yeah.
has kind of moved towards the...
Well, and here's the
I'm
other
not
thing.
hearing those because
So-
I don't have OBS open.
The idea of Halloween, the way that it is, actually came about because of the holiday Samhain. You know, are you familiar with that one?
No.
The Irish holiday of Samhain, which is actually like a celebration of midsummer. Okay, but because the holiday does happen it happens on October 31st, and
Right.
it toes the line between the living and the dead. The American ideal just took over like completely. The American ideal took over completely, and essentially Halloween is only the way that we know Halloween because of the American ideal. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it would just be Samhain, which is just basically like Midsummer, which is just basically Saturnalia. We're not going to get into all of that.
There's a
I
lot
thought
to
about
it.
it.
Most
I
of
thought
it's
about it.
stolen and repurposed.
Oh yeah, 100%. But Christmas actually was the time in the Victorian era to tell scary stories. And like a lot of people, myself included, did not know that. I had no idea.
I didn't either because I figured Halloween always had to do with like the harvest and All Hallows Eve and stuff like that, but apparently not.
Yeah. So sexy dad jokes got a little bit more detailed than me, which is, I was hoping somebody would. Samhain Irish Scottish Gaelic. Manx Sun is a Gaelic festival, marking the end of the harvest season and the beginning of the winter, or darker half of the year.
Nice.
So that is an interesting thing.
It does
because
make sense. It makes
it does.
a whole lot of sense.
I think it does. Because, you know, the darker half of the year makes more sense to have spooky stories around then. But
Right.
once, you know, the American ideal again took over, well, puritanical Christian idealism actually made Christmas what it is. Because the tradition of telling ghost stories around the fire for Christmas is no longer a thing. And there's like a bunch of people who actually really want to bring it back. And I'm pretty okay with it. I wouldn't mind.
why
I
not?
think it'd be cool to have, even if Halloween leaves, I would leave Halloween alone.
You know what? After Black Friday, everything's up in the air. Like that's the scariest point of the year for me. So if we can continue the spooky on through Christmas, fuck it.
Oh, yeah, let's go, dude. Let's go. So that's really where we're going. I called this one, what the fuck did I call this thing? Some dumb name.
The haunting history of the holidays.
The Haunting History of the Holidays by Morbid Message Monday.
We need help. Yes, we do.
We do need
Everybody
healthy
does.
change.
Everybody does.
I was going to run the intro, but I'm like, why? You know, what I
I'll
mean?
just
We're
edit
here-
it in. It's
We're here,
okay.
we're live. It's the most hauntingest time of the year. Absolutely it is. But this went from me being like, let's talk about the spooky history of the holiday to let's talk about fucking Victorian ghost stories because damn, they're metal.
Absolutely,
So-
they are.
This is an article from CarterhouseSchool.com called 10 Spooky Ghost Stories for Christmas Time. And I'm going to be intermittently going back to this article and going a little other places too. Saturnalia is awesome. You're absolutely right. We may talk about more like Midsummer and Saturnalia stuff next week. Victorian era, yeah, baby. Yeah, oh God, Panic Commander's in here. Don't say the Victorian era is the best. Victorian era, I like the idealism. I like the idea, their ideas of Christmas, but oh my God, don't get Jeff started on the Victorian era. He's going to type like full paragraphs. But yes, generally, I would disagree with that myself. But I'm going to read from this article, and we're going to go back and forth between this and article from Den of Geek. No, don't get Jeff started. God damn it.
Chuck.
You don't understand, Dad.
We're watching you.
Jeff rivals you on writing.
We're watching you.
And then we're going to be referencing an article from Den of Geek called A History of the Holidays Ghostly Tradition. And we're going to be referencing back and forth an article from mentalfloss.com called 7 Spine-Tingling Tales of Christmas Ghosts. And finally, one from historydaily.org called Christmas Ghost Stories.
Yes.
So, let's start with this one. Carter Howe, whatever. Just Jeff, the history guy. Okay, here, I will make a compromise. Jeff, you go drop some knowledge in the Discord for everybody. Just write it all out so that it's on it. 1, so it's permanently there. And 2, it's not in chat. Because everybody, I'm sure, is interested to hear, of course.
Start a conversation about it.
Yeah, start a conversation about it. But I'm going to jump into this. Now, apparently, the 2 gals who run this website saw an article from the Smithsonian called A Plea to Resurrect the Christmas Tradition of Telling Ghost Stories. And like they said, like, it was a surprise because it's like, well, I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, when did that become violent noises?
Right.
Because I didn't know that was a thing. I thought it was pretty rad. But apparently, Christmas ghost stories were a huge thing in Victorian England. Like, gigantic thing.
I mean, it was a depressing period of time, so I guess it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's where Dickens' A Christmas Carol came from. Okay?
Right. I think that's like the only one that we actually like maintain.
That's the only kind of mainstream.
Right.
Yes, A Christmas Carol. Absolutely. We're getting to that. Don't worry. But I mean, if I'm being honest, when I watch A Christmas Carol with Johnny, I'm like more like, this is super fucking weird.
I guess
why is this so dark and strange? You know,
right.
like
I guess it depends on which one you watch.
The Jim Carrey animation.
Some of them aren't as dark as like that one.
Dude, even Mickey's A Christmas Carol is fucking spooky.
Yeah, that one is.
But anyway, there's a bunch of incredible stories. Now, to understand why Christmas, was traditionally a time for ghost stories, you have to look at the various connections the celebration of Christmas has to the Celtic celebration of Yule, the winter solstice, and the darkest night of the year. While like Halloween and Samhain, those connections are not perfect, and Yule certainly didn't turn into Christmas, there are still significant borrowings that should be considered. What's most important here, however, is that winter solstice is yet another liminal time, a time of the year when the veil between worlds is thin. This makes it, therefore, a perfect time for ghosts. This belief, coupled with the fact that it simply gets darker earlier, makes the end of December the prime and traditional haunted storytelling time.
Cool. What a cool idea, though. Like the fact that, everything's like closer together in winter.
Yeah, I mean, it makes so much more sense in my opinion. If I'm thinking like of a spooky time, I'm thinking like dark, snowy, or foggy. Right?
Oh yeah, I mean it's honestly
darker
one
earlier.
of like the creepiest times when you're like out and about and there's snow everywhere. It's quiet.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's still. The night is still, and like I've personally find it peaceful, but I could totally see why it's like spooky for a lot of people. Disney literally spinning frightening stories and what would seem to be harmless stories, but then set off a cultural change and just growl. Oh God. I'm going to have to make like a fucking Morbid Message Monday rant section in the Discord. Matt, can you make that real quick for Jeff and then tag Jeff and Tex?
Yes, let me do that.
Just call it the Morbid Message Monday Ramblings channel.
Gotcha.
And like they can go off in there and y'all can have a great time. And maybe I'll go and read some of it eventually. Now, while telling ghost stories in the dark of the year has been popular for centuries, Christmas ghost stories were incredibly popular in Victorian England, especially in periodicals and as a part of oral tradition. Dickens' classic work was by no means the only ghost story going, though it was, as Dickey argues, perhaps the most sentimental and therefore the only one that really lasted. But ghost stories appeared all over the place, some much better than others, of course, but all intending to inspire at least a small shiver. Dickens was also a huge editor of Christmas ghost stories. He believed that Christmas Eve is the witching time for storytelling, and frequently included ghost stories in the magazines he edited. Interestingly, women contributed a huge proportion of these Christmas ghost stories. Scholars have estimated that as much as 50 to 70% of all 19th century ghostly fiction was written by women. Carpenter Colmar, ghost stories by British and American women. Interesting. I didn't realize that. So why were the Victorians so obsessed with ghosts? And it wasn't just ghost stories. They also had fads for holding seances, picnicking in cemeteries, and forming spiritualist and occult societies. And I mean, this is all very true. If you really think about it, look like Skull and Bones and all that shit. I mean, there's a lot that happened here. And a lot of this comes from the forming of the middle class. More leisure time and higher literacy means more people are reading, and more people in turn are reading ghost stories. And then those people essentially become Victorian goths, right? And that's where it all really starts to stem from. You're picnicking in the cemetery and you're talking about the occult and dark and evil things, as it were. Okay. And yeah, and part of it was the fact that ghost stories offered fantasies of destabilization of the powerful at a time when the British Empire was at its height, right? So that, people could escape into these, right? And I don't know if you saw the album cover for this, but like, I loved the album cover. The photo that I found for the album cover is so rad.
It was good.
Because it's really so spooky. It's like fun, and whimsical, but still spooky. Like maybe Christmas ought to be. But yeah, I think that another thing, like another reason that people really leapt into the idea of Christmas ghost stories is escapism. Like we have so many forms of escapism now.
Oh, it's like all we do now.
If I don't want to think about something, I can just go do whatever the fuck I want. Like, you know what I mean?
Technically, Tech Mess is a form of escapism.
Thank you so much for listening to Morbid Message Mondays by Tech Mess. We're here. Yeah, we're here for your escapism. But
life sucks. Come hate it with us.
Absolutely. Oh my God. What is happening in chat?
Something about snorting mummy.
Bring back threatening rich people with internal damage. Alistair Sims the 30s. Eternal damage. There we go.
I'm good with that. I'm good with bringing that back.
Hold on. Start a thread fad. Snorting. I'm not kidding about the mummies. I'm not kidding about the mummies.
Snorting mummy. Is that really a thing? I'm looking it up right now. Hold on.
What have we done? Experimented with just wow, and we think Tide Pods were bad. Netflix. What do you think is happening in chat? I don't know. I just found out for myself. So I'm going to go over a couple, obviously, Christmas ghost stories. Did you look up the snorting mummies thing?
I did.
I did know about that, actually. I'm pretty sure Jeff told me.
They were ground up and used for medicinal treatments.
Medicinal marijuana? No, I'm gonna snort this human like cocaine.
Snorting Uncle Bob over here.
I'm gonna snort. I'm not gonna say anything.
Well, that's Judy from next door.
Oh, damn!
She died of the plague.
Oh, Judy died of the plague, and now I snorted her. Oh shit! I got some boobos. Anyway, now I'm gonna go over a couple selections from 10 spooky ghost stories for Christmas time. Obviously, the most popular and the one we all know is A Christmas Carol. But here's a quick excerpt for those of you who have not either seen A Christmas Carol or have no interest in A Christmas Carol. And real quick, there it is. Matt is bringing his new member of the family onto stream.
This is my puppy.
There you go. Everybody,
I want a shirt now.
She's got a little shirt now. Oh my God. Let's start a hype train.
It says positive vibes on the back of it.
Positive vibes.
Positive vibes.
Yeah, super sweet little pupper. Now, this is an excerpt from
Back to the show.
A Christmas Carol by Charles
Dickerson.
Charles Dickens. I'm going to read it in my most old man British voice that I can do.
Do it.
I can't even. I can't, dude. Marley was dead, to begin with. There's no doubt whatever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner. Scrooge signed it, and Scrooge's name was good upon change for anything he chose to put his hand to. Old Marley was as dead as a doornail. Mind, I don't mean to say I know of my own knowledge what there is particularly dead about a doornail. I might have been inclined myself to regard a coffin nail as the deadest piece of ironmongery in the trade. But the wisdom of our ancestors is in the smile, and my unhallowed hand shall not disturb it. Or the country's done for. You will therefore permit me to repeat emphatically that Marley was as dead as a doornail. So,
how much money does Calm pay? You need to do like
the funniest part is like nobody would want to hear me say like in my normal voice. You know what I mean?
No, but
like you will therefore permit me to repeat emphatically that Marley was as dead as a doornail. Like that sounds not right, but if I do it in like my
it's the accents. Once you pull the accent,
well, I will read all of them in that if you'd like. There's a lot of excerpts here, and we're gonna do it.
This is all old Victorian, and you probably read more of this than I did, so I did.
The man deserves no respect, and I say that as someone who would count Bleak House among his favorite novels. Hell yeah! Oh, there we go, man. See, that's kind of where I'm at, right? Mm-hmm. Now, there's another one here called The Old Nurse's Story. It was written by Elizabeth Gaskell in 1852, and is a classic Gothic. Say classic Gothic and tell me that. I'm gonna head to bed. Have a great night. Amulet, put me in your headphones, and my voice will soothe you to sleep. Apparently,
you will fall asleep.
A classic Victorian ghost story, replete with ancestral secrets, organ music, and a seriously haunted house.
Ooh.
I turned towards the long, narrow windows, and there, sure enough, I saw a little girl. Less than my Miss Rosamond, dressed, all unfit to be out of doors, such a bitter night crying and beating against the window panes as if she wanted to be let in. She seemed to sob and wail, till Miss Rosamond could bear it no longer, and was flying to the door to open it. Well, when all of a sudden, and close up upon us, the great organ pealed out so loud and thundering, it fairly made me tremble. And all the more I remembered that even in the stillness of that dead, cold winter, I had heard no sound of little battering hands upon the window glass. Although the phantom child had seemed to put forth all its force, and although I had seen it wail and cry, no faintest touch of sound had fallen upon my ears. Whether I remembered all this at the very moment, I do not know. The great organ sound had so stunned me into terror. But this I know, I caught up Miss Rosamond before she got the hall door opened, and clutched her, carried her away, kicking and screaming into the large, bright kitchen, where Dorothy and Agnes were busy with their mince pies. So that was an excerpt from the old nurse's story.
Apparently you said replete.
Replete. I did say replete. Yeah, it's replete with ancestral secrets, organ music, and a seriously haunted house.
Oh wait, the word is actually replete?
Oh good. Is it replete? I thought it was replete. Did I say something wrong? Replete!
Which one is it? Let's see.
Oh no, Jeff, I heard it too.
I would read that as replete.
I thought it was replete. Yes, the word is actually replete.
Is it replete or replete?
Replete? I doubt it's replete. That sounds wrong.
It sounds old and Victorian-y.
It sounds Victorian-esque. Nope, it's like complete. So yeah, replete. Okay, why is everybody making me stress out?
I don't know. That's fucking creepy though. Phantom child banging on
Phantom
your window.
child banging in Victorian England, all spooky. Ugh, hell no.
Why did
Now
they
this
enjoy
is
this?
it's interesting though, right? Like this is the stuff that they read around the fire, right? And then like kids get all spooky and shit, not get making fun. Just a word that isn't used much anymore. Oh, okay, fair enough.
All right.
So I'm going to say it the right way. Now, this is an excerpt from Horror, A True Tale by John Berwick Hardwood. A little synopsis. The slow-burning suspense of this tale... I need some water. This voice is actually really hard to do.
Let me read that then. The slow-burning suspense of this tale is enough to make your hair curl or turn white overnight, just like the narrator.
Oh, God.
That's not good.
I got to try to be a different narrator?
I'm thinking Scottish. Yeah, actually, no, not Scottish. You gotta do Scottish.
I have heard since then of the Scottish belief that those doomed to some great calamity before Fae are never so disposed, for merriment and laugh is just before the blow falls. If ever mortal was Fae, then I was so on that evening. Yeah, solid? No, maybe not.
Can we make Jake's hair curl?
Matt can learn how to do that, I'm sure, maybe.
Probably.
Now, this is from Bring Me a Light by Jane Margaret Hooper.
It sounds so much happier.
Yeah, Snow White's stepmother got nothing on this vengeful lady Henrietta. The story details how her evil deeds poison her family, home for generations. I'm not going to do all of these, just like, oh, yes, there's a very cold man. She paced to and fro, turning and returning with savage, stealthy quickness. The day waned, and night began. Her servant came to see if she wanted, and was sent away with a haughty negative. She is busy with some wicked thought, murmured the old woman. Interesting, I like these. So this is The Ghost Summons by Ada Buison. Buison? Buison? It's bussin'. It's bussin'. A doctor is hired to witness a man's final hours. I'm going to try to read this in my most not British voice, just deep, you know what I mean? Would you be willing to earn £1,000? £1,000! His words seemed to burn my very ears. I should be thankful if I could do so honestly, I replied with dignity. What is the service required of me? A peculiar look of intense horror passed over the white face before me, but the black lips answered firmly. To attend a deathbed. Ooh. Well then, that's a spooky doctor.
That is a spooky doctor.
I'm trying to find
Does sound a little bit Poe-ish, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. Kind of, this sounds like Poe. a little bit. A little bit. How many more do we have here? Okay, there's still quite a few more.
Quite a bit. There's quite a few.
So I'm gonna kind of go over the ones that I feel are worth going over, if that makes sense. Matt, what do you think of The Kit Bag by Algernon Blackwood?
Like it.
Oh God. Okay. This is an excerpt from The Kit Bag. This is exactly what you're walking into, STI 33. It is difficult to say exactly at what point fear begins. When the causes of that fear are not plainly before the eyes, impressions gather on the surface of the mind, film by film as ice gathers upon the surface of still water, but often so lightly that they claim no definite recognition from consciousness. Then a point is reached where the accumulated impressions become a definite emotion, and the mind realizes that something has happened. With something of a start, Johnson suddenly recognized that he felt nervous, oddly nervous. Also that for some time past, the cause of this feeling had been gathering slowly in his mind, but that he had only just reached the point where he was forced to acknowledge them. Okay, you want me to do the accent? God damn it. Look, someone has to hype up the stream. Yo, let's go! Charles Dickens in the motherfucking house! Okay.
Capiche.
Capiche. Now, this is The Dead by James Joyce, written in 1914. Keep that in mind, okay? Though technically no ghost appears, the story is haunted by the memory of a young man long since dead. A few light taps upon the pane made him turn to the window. It had begun to snow again. He watched sleepily the flakes, silver and dark. Oh, shit! Jesus fucking Christ! You son of a bitch!
That was a good one.
Oh my God!
You don't know my mother. Okay. A few light taps upon the pane made him turn to the window. It had begun to snow again. He watched sleepily the flakes, silver and dark, falling obliquely against the lamplight. The time had come for him to set out on his journey westward. Yes, the newspapers were right. Snow was general all over Ireland. It was falling on every part of the dark central plain, on the treeless hills falling softly upon the bog of Allen, and farther westward, softly falling into the dark, molten as shutting waves. It was falling, too, upon every part of the lonely churchyard, on the hill where Michael Fury lay buried. It lay thickly drifted on the crooked crosses and on headstones, on the spears of the little gate, on the barren thorns. His soul swooned slowly, as he heard the snow falling faintly through the universe, and faintly falling, like the descent of their last end, upon all the living and the dead.
I'm telling you, where's that Calm sponsorship, guys?
Maybe we should just do a stream where I read people's stories.
Guys,
If you have a story you'd like me to read, send it over to the Discord. I'm just kidding. Okay, so Matt, let's learn a little bit more about the history of the holidays' ghostly tradition.
History of the holidays' ghostly tradition. So this ghost story by Jerome K. Jerome in 1891. It always is Christmas Eve in a ghost story. In the English countryside, dinner had ended. The company retired to the drawing room. They gathered around the fire as the parson, who sat in a high-backed oak chair, proceeded to tell of goblins and ghosts. The squire, not a superstitious man himself,
about goblins and ghosts.
Listened intently as the parson spoke about the crusader who rose from his tomb for a nighttime ride. The old porter's wife added to the tale with her own of the crusader's march on Midsummer's Eve, when fairies became visible. Such was Christmas night at Bracebridge Hall in England in 1820.
The crusader! I can't do it.
The story is set in a fictional manner, was written by the American author Washington Irving, and published in 1820. And it was the fifth installment of the sketchbook of Geoffrey Crane Gent. Did I just read into another one?
This was less than 3 months before the world was introduced to the Headless Horseman. In the legend of Sleepy Hollow, prior to the start of the Victorian era, and when Charles Dickens was only 7 years old.
See, and I always thought that the Headless Horseman was a Halloween tale.
Right? But isn't that interesting?
Apparently not.
Yeah, and there's a lot with this article that I'm actually really stoked to get into. But we're good, Pilot. I'm super stoked to see you here, though. And next time you're in town, you definitely got to get Blake's. He has not had Blake's.
What? Get
I know. Now, 23 years before Ebenezer Scrooge changed his ways on the holiday in 1843, and 143 years before Andy Williams first sang about the most wonderful time of the year in 1963, Christmas had already been established as the season for telling scary ghost stories. And that's true. I mean, we were just talking about that. Mm-hmm. Irving's English countryside story reminded readers of the idea of the paranormal and Christmas connection, but he didn't invent it by a long shot. Before, and this is where Z Remmers is gonna fucking be like, before it was Christmas, it was midwinter, solstice, Saturnalia, Sol Invictus, and Yule. It was the longest night of the year in the northern hemisphere. It represented death and rebirth, and was a time when the veil between worlds was thin. And it took place Not on December 25th, but actually around December 21st.
Okay, so a little bit earlier.
Yeah. Now, prior to the emergence of what we know as the seasonal mascot Santa Claus, there was Sinterklaas and St. Nicholas before him. Sinterklaas. Sinterklaas.
Sinterklaas.
Oh, hey, there's Sinterklaas. And St. Nicholas before him. There was the long-bearded Odin, who would lead a band of hunters or fairies or armies of the dead across the sky during Yuletide on the wild hunt of Old Norse and Germanic pagan beliefs. Let's fucking go! Put some metal in there! And much like Odin and Solstice, were appropriated or enveloped into Christmas. So were seasonal pagan songs turned into carols.
Is this what it was? Is this it was just too metal, so Christianity is like, no, we gotta dumb that down a bit.
They're like, let's take the metal and turn it down into
throw that away.
Sleigh bells ringle and jing jing
Yeah,
jingle.
we're gonna throw the metal away and bring in
Sinatra,
and
the woman.
Sinatra and
Did you say Beyonce?
Doesn't she do a couple Christmas songs?
No, that's Mariah Carey.
Oh, Mariah Carey.
You
that's
son
right.
of a bitch. Beyonce, Mariah Carey.
Shows you how much I listen to Christmas
I
music.
must be psychic. Times easy remembers turn into something. Yeah. Well, and as Christianity spread, folklore incorporated the supernatural with the religious holiday.
Mm-hmm.
The anti-Claus, Krampus. Somebody used their bits to do that. Where is it?
There is a
Hold
bit.
on.
Yeah,
I don't think I have.
Did you not publish it?
No, it's there. You just have to go to the actual page, but you can actually use bits to play me going Krampus like 15 different times for
I
Amulet.
can't cheer on my own channel. Are you kidding me?
I know. What the fuck, right? Anyway,
Anti-Claus.
Anti-Claus. And that's from a pre-Christian era, but the beast of Germanic and Eastern European origins became a counterpart to Saint Nick and appeared as a hairy goat-like demon with horn. You know, we talked about Krampus.
We know Krampus.
We talked a lot about Krampus. But yeah, I wanted to kind of talk more about like the Victorian Christmas stories and just how metal and like
it's crazy how
dark they were,
they were, because like over here we're like, oh, it's Saint Nick, and over there they're like, death.
They're like, it's Saint Nick, but he's here to fuck you.
Corpses in the skies.
Corpses in the skies. Bleed eternal torment.
Like literally.
Right.
And I think it makes more sense. And I'm just going to say it. I think Halloween should be on Christmas. I mean, a lot of people say like, oh, and the holidays are hard for everybody. And whether that be because you lost somebody around the holidays or because, it reminds you of family or a family that you may not be super close to or something like that. I think a lot of it also has to do with the fact that it's just a darker time of year, right? I mean, like thinking about the overall mood of winter, it's not necessarily meant to be like a holly jolly time. And maybe that's what's good about the Christianized ideal of Christmas is it takes
trying to make it better.
Yeah, it takes what perhaps could be the saddest time of year, the hardest time of year for a lot of people, and turns it around. But I also think that there's reasons to maybe have both. I mean, why not?
And it's so ingrained now that
Artie, you missed the reading.
You're here.
I read in my most calming voice.
But it'll be live on all platforms tomorrow.
It will be live on all platforms tomorrow.
I think it's a lot easier to think about, a happy-go-lucky white, big fat white dude coming down your chimney giving you gifts than it is to think about a phantom demon child staring at you from outside your window and tapping on the glass.
I prefer Phantom Demon Child.
I mean, this is Tech Mess. We prefer horror, but like most people, I don't think would be okay with Krampus, knocking on the door. Or what was the name? What was the name of the deer skull-headed thing?
Marie Louise.
Marie Louise.
Marie Louise. You said Mary Lewis.
No, Marie Louise.
It sounded like it's Marie Louise.
Marie Louise.
Marie Louise.
Yeah, like nobody wants that showing up at their doorstep. I'm sorry.
No, or the Kraken Kolos, or any of that kind of stuff. Generally,
sausage stealing,
sausage swiper. or spoon liquor or any of those kind of things. But I think that it's really cool. And I think we should bring the tradition back. I think we should start telling Christmas ghost stories, especially these fucking cool ass, like Victorian ones that I was reading earlier. I mean, they're just super fucking neat. Yeah. And I like the idea of how like morbid and dark the time was. I will read one more. I'll read one more.
We'll do some Phasmo.
And then we'll jump into Phasmophobia. Matt, do you have any final moments before I end the podcast on this excerpt from Between the Lights by E.F. Benson, written in 1912?
I mean, I continue to learn more and more about Christmas that I didn't know about. So
yeah,
that's cool.
It's so cool, right? I like this. I love learning more about holidays. I would like to put more time into that around the holidays.
Well, because
it's really easy to podcast about.
Right. Well, and we grew up around the Christianized versions of these things, and we don't get to learn about the other cultures that developed their stories around these holidays. So
and the other that started it all, right? Yeah. I mean, we only know the versions that American idealism has pushed forward,
right?
And there's nothing wrong. Again, I still think Christmas being a holly jolly time is awesome, but I also like the idea of it being a spooky ooky time.
I like the idea of exploring other cultures' holidays.
Did you do the one about the hide and seek type creepy Christmas story? I don't believe so, but if you're on the Discord, share it.
And yes, there's a new channel in the Discord called Morbid Message Mondays.
What?
Well, it just like blinked out on me.
You're fucking killing me with that. I was all excited. I was like, here it comes.
Rant Zone.
There we go. You saw it on TikTok. No, these are actually just so you have a little bit of backstory. We were talking about how in Victorian England, Christmas was the time of like ghost stories to tell around the fire and stuff like that. So it's not like current Christmas stories that are haunting, but I would be super down if y'all want to find like a big list of them. We'll do those next week for Morbid Message Monday. 250%.
Absolutely.
Like for sure. Now, this one is called Between the Lights by E.F. Benson. It was written in 1912. And here's the synopsis. Christmas croquet and hallucinations. What's not to love? Well, let us say for the moment that it was not a dream. Exactly, but a hallucination. Whichever it was, in any case, it haunted me for months. I think it was never quite out of the mind, but lingered somewhere in the dusk of consciousness, sometimes sleeping quietly, so to speak, but sometimes stirring in its sleep. It was no good for my telling myself that I was disquieting myself in vain, for it was as if something had actually entered into my very soul, as if some seed of horror had been planted there. And as the weeks went on, and the seed began to sprout so that I could no longer even tell myself that the vision had been a moment's disorderment only, I can't say that it actually affected my health. I did not, as far as I know, sleep or eat insufficiently, but morning after morning I used to wake, not gradually, and through pleasant dozings into full consciousness, but with absolute suddenness, and find myself plunged into an abyss of despair. So, thank you so much for listening to Morbid Message Monday.
Hard stop.
Just boom! Just cut it right there. But that was I had a lot of fun with that episode.
That was good.
Was fun, man.
That was good. We got a nice holiday sampling of Jake's voice.
And don't forget we hope you have a great night, or day, or evening, or whatever time it happens to be. And well, goodbye.
Charcuterie board of charisma.